Arthur Morgan is one of the most complex characters that Rockstar has ever written, and that's a big part of why people love him. The more I thought about it, the more I began to ask myself a question most players might avoid. What if Arthur wasn't really a hero? What if, deep down, he was always the villain of Red Dead Redemption 2? Consider where we first meet Arthur. He isn't an innocent farmhand who stumbles into a life of crime. He has already been living in the mud with Dutch for decades, robbing, killing, and fleeing from the law. Before we even press start, Arthur has left behind a trail of bodies. Rockstar makes this clear. His introduction is grim. He doesn't ride in like John Marston in the first game, try to make amends. Arthur is already knee-deep in blood from the first scene. That doesn't sound like a hero's journey. It sounds like the beginning of a villain. If we look at how Arthur describes himself, he understands this. He admits it in conversations with Hosea, Mary Beth, and Sister Calderon. Arthur isn't blind to the reality that his life has been built on hurting others. But here's the catch. Every villain thinks they have a reason for their actions. Dutch claims it's all for freedom. Micah argues it's just survival. Arthur, he tells himself it's loyalty. But loyalty doesn't erase the blood on his hands. I can already hear people saying, but Arthur changes. He redeems himself. That's true, but only if you play the game with high honor. The issue is that Rockstar designed Arthur's story to swing either way. With low honor, Arthur leans further into his cruelty, and that ending doesn't feel like redemption at all. This isn't by chance. It's Rockstar reminding us that Arthur's villainy isn't just about one or two bad decisions. It has always been a part of who he is. The player decides how much of it to reveal. Even in high honor, redemption doesn't wipe away villainy. Helping John escape in the final moments doesn't change the fact that Arthur killed innocent men and women without remorse. If anything, it shows that Arthur knew he was a villain, and his only hope was to try to balance the scales before it was too late. What makes me think Arthur leans more towards villain than hero is that he never truly leaves Dutch. He has doubts, questions him, and even fights with him, but he never walks away until he has no choice. A true hero would have taken John and left long before the Pinkertons arrived. Arthur didn't. He stayed because, ultimately, he couldn't stop being Dutch's enforcer. He couldn't stop being the villain in Dutch's story. Let's also remember how the world views him. To the Pinkertons, Arthur is just another outlaw. To the townsfolk, he's a masked bandit who steals and kills. He isn't remembered as a hero of the West. In fact, when John takes over in the epilogue, Arthur's name barely comes up. That silence speaks volumes. Arthur Morgan didn't leave a hero's legacy. He left a villain shadow, which John spends the rest of his life trying to escape. But maybe that's the beauty of Arthur's character. He isn't meant to be a clean-cut hero or a simple villain. He's both. He's the man who sacrifices his last breath to save his friend, and he's the man who robs a widow's last dollar. That duality makes him feel real. The truth is, Arthur Morgan wasn't just a villain all along. He was a man who lived as one, died trying not to be one. And if you want to see what really drove him to leave the gang, stick around and watch this next video.